children throughout the rest of the world. And that's what this legislation, part of this legislation does, is what the member just mentioned, is give the tools to the Canadian Border Services they need in order to keep track of people who are disposed to want to cause terrible harm to young children.
The time for government orders has expired. Déclaration de député.
Statements by members.
The honourable member for Oshawa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in the House today to highlight the important work of many young Canadians, both in my constituency of Oshawa and across the country, in conserving Canada's environment and at-risk species. Earth Rangers is the kids' conservation organization dedicated to providing children with the opportunity to protect animals, improve the environment, and make a difference. Our government has placed a priority on connecting Canadians to nature and on ensuring that there is a community of environmental stewards among Canadians of all ages. As part of the National Conservation Plan, our government has provided funding to allow Earth Rangers to expand programming to over 624 schools, impacting over 118,000 young students across the country. From Fort McMurray to Truro, children of all ages have had the chance to learn about the importance of conservation. Mr. Speaker, we are very fortunate to have some of these young Earth Rangers ambassadors. I invite all members present in the House to help me welcome these green-minded role models to Ottawa and thank them for their work in protecting Canada's environment.
The honourable member for Esquimalt-Fuga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to recognize November 20th as the Trans Day of Remembrance. People and communities across Canada and around the world are marking today by remembering victims of transphobic violence and rededicating themselves to working to end discrimination against transgender, transsexual, and gender-variant people. Last year, there were 83 murders of trans people, and countless more were victims of violence and discrimination. On this Trans Day of Remembrance, we should also look forward, and we should ask how we can make things better. The past year has seen some progress on trans rights in places as diverse as Dallas, Texas, and Mexico City. 5 Canadian provinces have recently added explicit protection against discrimination to their human rights codes. But it is clear that much more remains to be done to build a more inclusive Canada where transgender and gender-variant Canadians can participate fully and live without fear. At the federal level, the Senate remains the last obstacle to full legal equality for the trans community. They have now held up passage of Bill C-279 for nearly 2 years after its approval by the House of Commons. Once again, on this Trans Day of Remembrance, we urge the Senate to pass this legislation without further delay.
L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Lotbinière, Chutes-la-Chaudière. Mr. Speaker, today, November 20th, I want to underscore a day that's very important to us all, National Child Day. They're our wealth, our future, and that's why the Conservative government recently put in place additional measures to enable more than 4 million Canadian families to have more money in their pockets by increasing by $60 the universal child care benefit for children, income splitting for families, the $1,000 increase for child care, and the fitness tax credit that will go up to $1,000. That's on average for $1,040 more in the pockets of all families. Our government is truly committed to the health and well-being of our children, and I'm very proud of that.
Mr. Speaker, National Housing Day is Saturday, and across the country, events and rallies are being planned, and they're asking, in fact, they are demanding a very simple thing from Parliament. Canadians want a national housing strategy. Last week in Vancouver, I attended a national conference on ending homelessness, and a new report pegs the number of people sleeping on the streets at 35,000 people. The junior minister for housing spoke at that conference, and she stated that once you get someone off the street, the next thing you need to get them is a job. This is a bizarre statement. In Calgary, 80% of the people sleeping in the shelter system have a job. They don't need a job, they have it. What they need is housing. In Vancouver, the fastest growing cohort of homeless people are seniors, most with disabilities. Yet what they get is a sneering response from the government, get a job. Really? And in Toronto, most of the people sleeping in the shelter, in fact, half of them are children. Is the Conservative government's response to the housing crisis to get children into workhouses? Is this what it's come to? We need to get a national housing program. We need it now. Listen to the mayors. Listen to local leaders. Canadians want a national housing program, and if that government won't deliver one, the Liberals will.
The honourable member for Burnaby Douglas.
residents opposed to Kinder Morgan's new crude oil pipeline are poised to be arrested for protesting in a public park on Burnaby Mountain. The Conservatives are entirely responsible for creating this situation. The government's changes to the National Energy Board Act have completely removed the ability of British Columbians from having any voice in planning if and how this massive energy project should proceed through our community. They have compounded this problem by calling anyone who objects to these projects a radical. I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that the vast majority of these protesters are not radicals. They are local, law-abiding Canadians forced in this obscene position by this Conservative government. They are parents, grandparents, university professors, teachers, students, and homeowners. They are on Burnaby Mountain because they feel their community is threatened and they have no other way than protesting to voice their concerns. Mr. Speaker, as the Conservatives have abandoned Burnaby and British Columbia, I'm calling on Kinder Morgan President Ian Anderson to cease his current activities on Burnaby Mountain and not force local police to arrest my constituents. Thank you.
The honourable member for Oakville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to inform the House of the passing on September 27th of the late Dr. Harry Harley, the former Member of Parliament for Halton from 1962 to 1968. Dr. Harley dedicated his life to the service of his country and to this Parliament. He was a member of the Royal Canadian Air Force and served in the Second World War. After that, he continued to serve in the Royal Canadian Army Medical Corps as a captain. He was later promoted to the rank of Major in 1956 and served in Europe with NATO. Beyond his years of military service, Dr. Harley followed his passion in medicine and became a physician, devoting his life to helping others through his medical practice. Dr. Harley proudly served the people of his Halton constituency. During his time in Parliament, he chaired numerous committees that studied and advanced the medical practice of physicians nationwide. Dr. Harley led studies on drugs, food, prices, and the health and welfare of Canadians. We will never forget the contribution Dr. Harley made to his patients, his constituency, and his country. And let us remember him fondly in this House. Thank you.
The honourable member for Langley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Saturday, November the 22nd, marks the 81st anniversary of the Holodomor, a death by hunger genocide committed by Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin against Ukraine in 1932 to 1933. Though less known than other genocides, it was no less brutal and inhumane. In 1 year, this deliberate catastrophe resulted in the deaths of 10 million Ukrainians. It was an act of pure evil that devastated the country of Ukraine and eliminated an entire generation of people. On the fourth Saturday of every November, we join Ukrainians in recognizing this dark chapter of their history. Since 2003, Canada has officially recognized the Holodomor as what it was, genocide, an acknowledgement now shared by 23 other countries around the world. Mr. Speaker, the annual commemoration of this horrific event not only pays tribute to the innocent lives lost, but serves as a strong reminder of the duty that Canada has to stand up for prosperous, free, and independent Ukraine. Vishnaya Pamyat, Slava Ukraini.
Honourable député.
The honourable member for.
Honourable député de.
The honourable member for Jean Lebert. Mr. Speaker, I would like to underscore the work of hundreds of organizations working in my riding of Jean Lebert. I'm very proud to work side by side with the workers and all of the volunteers who give their time, be it with respect to housing and food, people with need, fighting school dropout rates. The commitment of these organizations is at the heart of our community.
Speaker, I have visited many of these organizations, such as Toujours Ensemble. Through their efforts, this Verdun-based organization, which is a member of the Pathway to Education program, has seen a reduction in the dropout rates by 70%. Mr. Speaker, I am very proud of the hundreds of individuals that give of their time, spirit, and heart to build a strong and better and more inspired community. To each and every one of them, Mr. Speaker, I say thank you.
The honourable member for Miramichi.
Mr. Speaker, in less than a week, 3 Liberal candidates have expressed how they want to force middle-class families to pay more taxes. The very same day he announced he was running for the Liberal Party, Liberal candidate Bill Casey told CTV that the Liberal leader will raise taxes on Canadian families.
Shame.
Bill Casey
Unbelievable.
confirmed once again what Canadian families know. The Liberals want Canadians to pay higher taxes, while the Liberals line the pockets of bureaucrats. Our Conservative government will continue to give benefits to all families with children. Parents will now receive nearly $2,000 for every child under 6 and $720 for every child aged 6 to 17. And thanks to the family tax cut and the enhanced universal child care benefit, parents can rest assured that they will be the ones making the decisions for their children, not big government.
Hear, hear.
Our government sees the importance of parents having the final say. Why can't the NDP and the Liberals see it?
The honourable member for Scarborough Rouge River.
Today marks the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. Every year on November 20th, Canadians celebrate National Child Day to honour our children.
However, this isn't just a day to celebrate. We must also reflect upon our values as Canadians, to reaffirm our commitments to the promises made 25 years ago in this House and to the world.
Owe it to our children to keep the promises we made 25 years ago. Canada has ratified the Convention, and therefore we have an obligation to act on its mandates, to eliminate child poverty in Canada, to invest in early childhood education, employment, housing, nutrition, and childcare. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, support for the NDP continues to rise because Canadians know full well that we are the only party with national, comprehensive and affordable plans that meet the needs of families and their children.
It's time to honour and respect our commitment by taking action and delivering on our promises.
The honourable member for Mississauga East Cooksville.
Mr. Speaker, it comes as no surprise that the Liberal Party is looking to recruit big tax, big spend candidates. The beer and popcorn campaign is up and running, and the Liberal candidate for Banff has extended it to cars and TVs. Our government believes that Canadian families ought to be trusted to spend her hard-earned money as they deem necessary. The family tax cut will help 100% of families with children by putting more money in their pockets and giving families the freedom to spend it as they want. Yes. We are proud that over 4 million families will benefit by an average of over $1,100 per year. And Mr. Speaker, I'll say that's something we should all be cheering for. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Westmount.
The honourable member for Westmount-Ville-Marie.
To recognize the 25th anniversary of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. Canada played an important role in drafting the convention and was one of the first nations to sign and ratify. Canada has made progress in the intervening years, but we still have much to do. Today, the well-being of our children is average among the world's affluent nations. UNICEF's Index of Child Well-being shows that the health of our children is not what we would expect given the knowledge and resources we have. And there is a widening inequity of opportunity amongst children living in urban, rural and northern communities. Nous, les élus, représentons les Canadiens, incluant les enfants.
We as elected representatives need to reflect on our role. The federal government has no focal point for children or policy programs aimed specifically at the most vulnerable about us. We must do more to improve their future and the vitality of these young people because their future and the vitality of our very country depend on it.
The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last night, the House voted on whether the Canada-EU trade agreement would be implemented as negotiated. The details of this agreement has been released, the outcomes are known, and the benefits are clear. A $12 billion increase to our GDP and thousands of new jobs. Being from a riding that has a diversified agriculture background with grain, oilseeds, and supply-managed farms, as well as a very large and vibrant ranching and livestock community, I can say that this agreement is well endorsed and supported by the producers in my riding. Farmers are ecstatic about the opportunity to expand their markets. The NDP, however, proved last night that they were simply unfit to govern, as they voted against a landmark trade agreement. Canadians witnessed yet again the NDP standing in this House and opposing yet another trade agreement that promotes trade, jobs, growth, and long-term prosperity.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Argenteuil-Papineau-Méribat. Mr. Speaker, 25 years ago, Ed Broadbent rose in this House to make his last speech as the leader of the NDP, and he underscored the importance of fighting child poverty. He launched the challenge of eliminating child poverty by the year 2000. Unfortunately, that objective has still not been met. But what's even more unfortunate are the comments made by the Prime Minister with respect to Ed Broadbent's project, and I quote, "I think that the 1989 resolution was probably the high watermark of political stupidity in this country." Mr. Speaker, in Canada, 1 child out of every 5 lives in poverty. That is unacceptable. But for the Prime Minister to call an initiative to eliminate child poverty stupid is simply shameful. In 2015, the first NDP government will put in place a system of affordable childcare and a plan to eliminate child poverty.
The Honourable Member for Cumberland, Colchester, Musquodoboit Valley.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I'd like to give my condolences and thoughts and prayers to the families of the 3 students who were shot today at my alma mater, Florida State University. Hopefully they're all okay. Mr. Speaker, our government has made it a top priority to make life more affordable for Canadian families, to help them prosper, and to ensure they have the right in choosing what is best for their own families. Absolutely. We want to ensure that all children get the best start in life so they can reach their potential, whether it be at home, at school, on the playground, or beyond. Mr. Speaker, today is National Child Day. I'm honored to rise in this House and say that we are living up to our commitment to support Canadian families, whether it be the expansion of the universal child care benefit, whether it be the doubling of the children's fitness tax credit and making it refundable, whether it be the family tax cut. We are keeping that commitment to Canadian families to make life more affordable. I'm very proud of our government, and we will continue to put forward measures. I only hope the opposition will choose to support this, because we are on the side of Canadians and their children and making sure they have the opportunities and potential for the future.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, we heard yesterday that the Finance Minister did not even go through his department before announcing this new tax credit. It's clear that it is purely ideological. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has told us that it will raid $550 million to the EI fund and only create 800 jobs. Does the Minister not believe that he should do his homework before presenting such reckless measures? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, our reduction will apply to 740 small businesses across the country. The FCUE understands that this will affect many jobs. It will create many jobs. But the NDP would increase taxes terrifically by doing away with the 45-hour work year. The employees should not lose this hard-earned money. What's good for them is also good for the economy.
Honourable Member for Halifax.
Yes, the CFIB, yet the minister ignored the CFIB when they said, quote, "You're not going to pay for a full job through an EI hiring credit." Well, Mr. Speaker, the minister has now admitted that he failed to ask his own department to analyze a $550 million tax credit. Well, the PBO did the analysis for him and found that the Conservatives want to spend $500 million on 800 jobs. So why did the minister fail to analyze a $550 million tax credit before introducing it?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, since the depths of the recession, our economy has created 1.2 million net new jobs. Small businesses have been very clear that payroll taxes, high payroll taxes, are job killers. And that is precisely what the NDP wants to impose on small business. And let me also add, Mr. Speaker, that we listen and we believe in small businesses. Apparently, the NDP does not. They want to raise their taxes. They want to raise payroll taxes. This is a job killer and precisely the opposite of what is needed for the economy.
The honourable member for Halifax.
Well, while the minister is spending hundreds of millions without any government analysis, veterans are facing deep cuts under the Conservatives. They're being told no when they're asking for help. Veterans are seeing the offices that serve them shuttered by that government. And now we learned that over $1 billion intended to help veterans, well, it never got out the door because of Conservative mismanagement. How can the Conservatives justify this while they close veterans' offices and they shortchange injured soldiers?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary and Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that's absolutely false.
Exactly
All
right.
governments always ensure statutory funding is fully funded to ensure there is no shortfall. This is normal practice of all governments. Annual expenditure at Veterans Affairs Canada have increased from $2.7 billion when the Liberals were in government, Mr. Speaker, to $3.5 billion in 2012-2013. Shame on that party for playing political games with Canada's veterans.
The honourable member for Hull-Aylmer. Whereas services are being cut, the Conservatives are closing regional offices, forcing our veterans to travel over long distances. In the meantime, we've learned that the government has helped itself to $1.1 billion intended for our veterans. It's immoral. There's no surprise that they no longer want to be pictured with the minister. Why is the government trying to save money on the backs of our veterans? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, I understand math isn't necessarily the NDP's strongest point, but let me just repeat this, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, since taking office, our government, since 2006, has spent over $30 billion, Mr. Speaker, on Veterans Affairs, benefits and services.
Exactly.
Mr. Speaker, that's over $5 billion in new funding. Our government has a strong record when it comes to providing benefits and services for Canada's veterans, and we will continue to do that.
The honourable member for Hull-Aylmer. Mr. Speaker, the fact is that there's a lack of staff and a backlog of 6 to 8 months to provide for services requested by veterans. There are veterans who die before receiving the services or the equipment that they need. And during that time, behind closed doors, the minister has secretly returned $1.1 billion to the Consolidated Fund. Is the government not ashamed of diverting money that is destined to our veterans?
Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned, our government has a strong record when it comes to standing up for Canada's veterans. Almost $30 billion, Mr. Speaker, since taking office. And if the NDP really cares, Mr. Speaker, about Canada's veterans and the benefits and the services that are provided to them, Mr. Speaker, they need to start voting in favor of the initiatives that we bring forward. Virtually every single initiative our government has brought forward for Canada's veterans, the opposition has voted against that, Mr. Speaker.
Shame on them. Honourable member for Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, $1 invested in new affordable housing grows the economy by $1.40. $1 into roads, water, or transit brings $1.20 in new growth. $1 billion in new infrastructure stimulates 16,000 person-years of employment. But the Conservatives have chopped their infrastructure fund by $1.2 billion to pay for gimmicks that do nothing for jobs or growth. The PBO says their employment insurance scheme actually kills 10,000 jobs, and the late Jim Flaherty said income splitting was too expensive, unfair, and anti-growth. So why such bad choices?
The Honourable Minister.
As a former Minister of Finance, if you believe so much in infrastructure, you should have done much more back then. As a former mayor, I remember very well the poor Liberal pretty well. They did nothing. Actually, they did something, they kicked their problem to the province at that time. But now we're fixing the problem. We're working with municipalities and provinces.
The honourable member for Wascana.
Speaking of bad choices, Mr. Speaker, since 2006, this government has made new promises to returning soldiers and veterans totaling $1.1 billion. But those promises were broken. The programs and services were never delivered. The government pocketed the cash, and what did they do with it, Mr. Speaker? Since 2006, they blew it on nearly $750 million in tax-paid government advertising. How can they justify swiping $1 billion from veterans while wasting hundreds of millions on their own self-indulgence?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, our government will take no lessons from the Liberals over there.
Exactly.
It was under their government that our men and women in uniform, Mr. Speaker, suffered decades of darkness.
Right.
Our government is standing up for Canada's veterans. If it was up to the Liberals, Mr. Speaker, comparatively, they would have spent $2.7 billion, whereas our government is spending $3.5 billion annually, Mr. Speaker. That's about $5 billion more in additional dollars since 2006.
Honourable Member for Westmont-Ville-Marie. Mr. Speaker, the government has closed 9 Veterans Service Centres to save a few millions, despite our soldiers begging them not to. We learned that Veterans Affairs Canada has given $1 billion in lapsed funding back to the Treasury since the Conservatives came to power in 2006. During that same time, the government spent $743 million on advertising. Can the government explain to all of us here why they give a bigger priority to advertising to get re-elected rather than taking care of our veterans? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, as we all know, actions speak much louder than words, Mr. Speaker. Our government has a strong record. As I mentioned, our government has invested almost $5 billion, Mr. Speaker, in additional dollars since taking office, since 2006, compared to the $2.7 billion the Liberals were spending, Mr. Speaker. Our government now spends $3.5 billion annually, Mr. Speaker, and has spent over $30 billion since taking office, since 2006.
And the Honourable Member for York South-Weston.
As we mark National Housing Day this weekend, Canada is experiencing a housing crisis. 1 in 4 Canadians spends more than 30% of their income on shelter. For too many, this means living in poverty. Conservatives are refusing to renew social housing agreements, and 200,000 Canadians risk losing their homes. Concerned Canadians from across the country are gathering in Ottawa Friday. Will the minister listen to them, take steps to fight poverty, and make real investments in affordable housing?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we have been listening, we have been meeting, we have been, in fact, signing agreements across the country with provinces to address the housing needs. Mr. Speaker, I met with representatives from FCM yesterday. Each one of the city representatives acknowledged that their city has different challenges. Each are unique when it comes to housing. That's why we have invested over $1.25 billion in our investment in affordable housing, giving the provinces the jurisdiction to spend that funding where they believe it's necessary, working together with the cities, with the municipalities to address the issue of housing.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. There's more than 1.5 million families who are poorly housed in Canada. 1.5 million. 1/4 of the population spends over 30% of their income to pay for their rent. Canada is part of the G7, the group of the 7 wealthiest nations in the world, and we can't even house our families appropriately? Come on. Can the government at least commit to renewing the social housing investments? The Honourable Minister of State.
Agreements, actually, those agreements are coming to an end because the mortgages are paid off. Canadians understand when mortgages are paid off, you don't keep paying the bank. Now, what we have done, Mr. Speaker, is we provided other supports to whether it's co-op housing or other flexibilities within the investment in affordable housing. But here's another novel idea for the opposition. For Canadians who are vulnerable, for Canadians who want to improve their housing situation, we're helping them, Mr. Speaker, by by giving them increased benefits like the universal child care benefit, like the family tax cut, like increasing their skills and abilities so that they can afford the housing in the regions they live.
The honourable member for Scarborough Rouge River.
Mr. Speaker, from affordable housing to poverty, the Conservatives are failing Canadians. 1 in 5 children in our wealthy country lives in poverty. I'm sure the Prime Minister regrets that he once called the 1989 motion on ending child poverty the high watermark of political stupidity in this country. Most people believe that caring for our children is a basic Canadian value. Will the government finally introduce a plan to eliminate poverty amongst our children in Canada?
The Honourable Minister of State for Social Development.
What is the Canadian value is not just talking but acting. That's what this government does. Mr. Speaker, we have lifted over 225,000 children out of poverty since coming into government. And you know what UNICEF Canada said? It's because of the measures that we've introduced to help families directly. Things like the universal child care benefit, which we are increasing and expanding, like our family tax cut. Every single family in Canada with children will receive a benefit from these measures, Mr. Speaker. That helps lift Canadian families out of poverty. It helps make life more affordable for Canadian families.
The honourable member for Saint Lambert. Mr. Speaker, 25 years ago, Ed Broadbent was successful in having a motion unanimously passed to eradicate child poverty before the year 2000. After 30 years alternating between the Liberals and the Conservatives, 1 out of 5 Canadian children still live in poverty. This is unacceptable that a country as wealthy as Canada leaves its children in such conditions. What actions does the government intend to take to eliminate child poverty in this country? Honourable Minister of State.
It's too bad the NDP don't recognize the great work that Canadians have done and that this government has done, lifting over 225,000 children out of poverty, the lowest level of poverty, Mr. Speaker, in our history. And you know why? Because we're doing things like we cut the GST by 2 points. Mr. Speaker, we've introduced the universal child care benefit, and now which will give families over $1,900 in benefits, which is direct money in their pocket. A single mom, Mr. Speaker, with 2 kids under the age of 6 will be receiving $3,800 in cash benefits. The NDP would take that away and put it in the hands of bureaucracies.
The honourable member for Saint Albert. The Conservatives promised 125,000 daycare spaces. After 9 years in power, the results are not difficult to sum up. No places have been created. 0, nada, nothing. While the Conservatives propose regressive policies like income splitting, which will only serve to help a tiny fraction of Canadians, families are having trouble making ends meet. How does the government intend to help families who are still waiting for daycare spaces? Honourable Minister of State.
I want the NDP to know this, and we've said this before. We've increased transfer payments to the provinces. The provinces, since we've come into government, have created 216,000 daycare spaces. Now, Mr. Speaker, here's the difference between us and them. We believe, Mr. Speaker, parents need more than just 9 to 5 full-time work daycare spaces. Parents need flexibility, those who are working part-time, those who, when one parent decides to stay home. Mr. Speaker, that's why our plan gives funds directly to parents, the universal child care benefit, the expansion, the increase, because we trust them to make the decisions they need.
Order. The honourable member for Newton North Delta.
Around $6 a day isn't going to be much help to working parents paying as much as $90 a day for childcare. While the Conservatives hand out tax cuts to the wealthiest families, the majority of families are falling further and further behind. Childcare is putting an enormous strain on family budgets, leaving parents faced with difficult choices. But the Conservatives have failed in their promise to deliver 125,000 new spaces. Why have Conservatives abandoned hard-working Canadian families?
The Honourable Minister of State.
So, Mr. Speaker, Speaker, here's what the NDP plan would do. It would cost $5 billion. It would help less than 10% of Canadian families. It would do nothing for rural Canadian families. It would do nothing for families who need evening childcare. It would do nothing for those families where one family member decides to stay at home. In fact, Mr. Speaker, what we're doing, and we know the NDP will take away the universal childcare benefit given the chance. We're keeping it, we're increasing it, we're expanding it to include older children, and we're including the family tax credit. Again, the difference between us and them is we want money in families' pockets. They want it in big bureaucracies which do nothing to help
Order. The honourable member for Newton. Order. The honourable member for Newton North Delta now has the floor.
While conservative tax breaks for wealthy families are getting bad reviews from economists, former finance ministers, and ordinary Canadians alike, the NDP's plan for affordable, universal childcare at no more than $15 a day has now been endorsed by the legislature of Canada's largest province. Canadians want to see their federal government become an active partner in making childcare more affordable. Why won't the minister adopt the NDP plan for universal, quality, affordable childcare?
The Honourable Minister of State for Social Development.
I think we just saw with Oshawa what Canadians think of the NDP. Here's the issue, Mr. Speaker. It's not a universal childcare plan because if you're a mom who is working part-time and you have a private daycare or you have another grandmother helping look after your child, their plan doesn't help. Their plan only helps less than 10% of Canadian families. It does nothing for rural Canadians. Our plan, Mr. Speaker, is simple. It means we trust parents. We give them the funds. It helps them make decisions that are best for their family in terms of their career choices, their working, and their child care.
The honourable member for Trois-Rivières. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When we talk about poverty, child poverty, that's because parents also suffer from poverty. Let's take, for example, mothers and fathers who work in seasonal industries and year after year have to deal with the waiting period, the gap, on top of receiving only 55% of their insurable earnings, if they're eligible after the Conservative reform. So my question, Mr. Speaker, is rather than diverting these premiums to a program that doesn't create any jobs, why doesn't the government improve the EI program in order to reduce poverty, particularly that affecting children? The Honourable Minister of Social Development.
That we have made to EI have not at all impacted the way people can qualify for EI. But what we have done, Mr. Speaker, is we've created over 1.2 million net new jobs. The unemployment rate is at the lowest since 2008. But, Mr. Speaker, in terms of poverty, we do believe the fundamental best answer for poverty is a good job, and that's why we're improving skills and we're creating jobs. Mr. Speaker, in addition to that, we are very, very proud of expanding and increasing the universal child care benefit. That $100 check that parents get for every child increased to $160. In addition, another $60 for their kids over 6 years old. New Westminster.
Well, on this side of the House, we actually believe in reducing poverty, not increasing it. That's the difference between the two. Now, the finance minister's been benched all week, but he forgot to mention to his $800 a plate Bay Street lunch crowd that the economic update shows that his supposed budget surplus is actually based entirely on surpluses in the EI account. Instead of helping the unemployed, the minister has decided to raid EI funds to cover the costs of his income-splitting scheme and pad his budget. Why is the minister balancing his budget and giving tax cuts to the wealthy few on the backs of unemployed Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I was very pleased to present to Canadians our economic and fiscal plan, which shows how well Canada's doing in a fragile world. We're doing better than other countries. Our economy is growing better. Our 1.2 million new jobs is better. We have half the debt to GDP of the G7. We have a AAA rating, and next year we're going to have a surplus, and we've already been able to give 4 million Canadian families tax breaks that they need, and $780,000 small businesses will be.
The honourable member for Guelph.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives robbed our brave veterans when they cut over $1 billion instead of funding vital programs and services. They've spent $750 million in self-serving ads and are cynically trying to balance the budget on the backs of veterans suffering from PTSD. Veterans are waiting 8 months for assistance. Veterans are traveling hours to see a caseworker because Conservatives closed 9 Veterans Affairs offices. Why do the Conservatives pretend to support our veterans when the facts clearly show that they abandoned them in their time of need?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, that's completely false, Mr. Speaker. All government always ensures statutory funding is fully funded to ensure there is no shortfall. This is normal practice in all governments, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have absolutely no lesson to be learned from the Liberal Party over there. All Canadians remember it was under the Liberal government that our brave men and women that suffered decade of darkness, Mr. Speaker. Our government has a strong record when it comes to standing up for Canada's veterans, and we will continue to do that, Mr. Speaker.
Right on. The honourable member for Vancouver Quadra.
Talk about a decade of delay and deception by this government.
Here, here.
Since 2006, the Conservatives have spent $750 million on partisan advertising, and meanwhile, they've cut the defence budget to the point that we hardly even have a functioning Navy, as we heard at the Defence Committee on Tuesday. The reality is that a total of $14 billion has been either cut or announced and clawed back from defence budgets. So why do the Conservatives believe that hundreds of millions of dollars in partisan advertising is more important than providing brave men and women in uniform with the basic equipment that they require?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, I can make this promise to the House: we will never go back to the way things were under the Liberals. But our military was completely ignored, Mr. Speaker. So I would point out to the honourable member that if she reads the supplementary estimates, that in addition to there's $900 million that have been added to make it $19.5 billion, Mr. Speaker. This is far more than was ever allotted under the Liberal Party, Mr. Speaker, because we support the men and women in uniform and our Canadian military.
The honourable member for Kings Hands.
Speaker, the Conservative so-called job credit will cost more than $500 million of taxpayers' money. Yet the Finance Minister told committee that the government hasn't done any economic analysis of it. Yesterday, when I asked the Finance Minister, I asked him why, and he said, we don't do analysis on every expenditure. If a $500 million expenditure doesn't require analysis, exactly how much taxpayers' money do the Conservatives have to spend before they do their homework?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals really have no shame. When they were in power, they raided the EI fund of $60 billion and used it as a political slush fund. What we are doing is providing benefits to small business, 780,000 small businesses, 90% of all businesses. They will benefit, they will create jobs, it'll be fair for them and good for the economy.
The honourable member for Vancouver East.
Mr. Speaker, this week the Lancet published evidence that Newlink has never made a vaccine, owns no manufacturing plant, and has never commercialized any drug. It's now been 4 years since Newlink acquired the responsibility to develop a vaccine for Ebola from Canada. But it only went to clinical trials last month, and only last Friday did they appoint a chief scientific officer for Ebola. So why did the minister say this morning in committee that she had no concerns about the contract with Newlink Genetics to develop the Ebola vaccine?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it was in fact the Chief Public Health Officer, Gregory Taylor, that said that he had no concerns about Newlink's efforts to commercialize the vaccine. He also answered the member's question fully at committee, and I reiterate the commitment from not only the Public Health Agency of Canada, but from the World Health Organization, from the U.S. Department of Defense, at the Walter Reed Institute, all of those in the international community and the private sector that are working to bring all of their influence to bear to support this Canadian vaccine that we should all be proud of, to make sure that it gets to market safely and effectively.
Well said.
Honourable Member for Saint-Bruno Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, Newlink Genetics has not fulfilled its agreement with Canadian scientists who invented a possible drug for Ebola. The contract requires Newlink to take all steps quickly to develop and sell the vaccine. But as we can see on the website, the company has just hired a scientist to take charge of the Ebola effort. This is really amateur hour, Mr. Speaker. How did the Conservative manage to sign a contract with Newlink when the company is obviously not prepared to commercialize a vaccine like this that Africa so needs? Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I reiterate again, and I'm happy to offer the member a more in-depth briefing on the steps that have been taken, not only by the Canadian government, by international partners, by a number of other bodies in the public health community that are bringing all of their influence to bear to ensure that this moves as quickly as possible. Where clinical trials usually take 5 years, this is happening in a matter of months because of the coordination domestically and internationally to make sure that this great invention by Canadian researchers and scientists is able to be proven to be safe and effective, and we can get it out to those people that need it.
Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Saint-Constant. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives' hypocrisy knows no bounds. They brag that their veterans' budget has increased over the past few years, but what they are not saying is that 5 to 8% of that budget is going back into government coffers. It is not being spent. $1.1 billion was promised to veterans, but it was used for other purposes, and this is disgusting. Why are Conservatives breaking their promises? Parliamentary Secretary.
That's absolutely false, and I would encourage the member to familiarize himself with the numbers and the benefits and the services that are available for Canada's veterans. And let me list a couple, Mr. Speaker, for you. A veteran who is injured and in rehabilitation receives a minimum of $3,500 in financial benefits each month. Veterans who are most seriously injured can receive $8,000 or more a month in financial benefits from Government of Canada and their military pension, Mr. Speaker. Our government has a strong record when it comes to standing up for Canada's veterans, and we will continue to do that.
Honourable Member for Sackville, Eastern Shore.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on my desk right now, I have a file from a veteran of BC who was denied VIP service. I have another one in Ontario who's denied a hearing aid. And I had a World War II veteran denied a lift so he can go up and down his stairs. Why, Mr. Speaker? Because the department says we simply can't finance these types of initiatives. Yet we find out over $1 billion of money has been sent back. I'd like to ask the question to the... Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the question directly to the Parliamentary Secretary. Has he no shame that these veterans and many others go without while they transfer $1 billion back to the Finance Department for their useless tax schemes?
Members need to let the member for Sackville Eastern Shore to actually put the question before they start answering it. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I have a lot of respect for the member opposite. He's been around long enough to know and understand the process. I would encourage that member, honestly, to not play politics or partisan games when it comes to Canada's veterans, Mr. Speaker, every single initiative our government has brought forward to help Canada's veterans, that member and his party...
Order. Parliamentary Secretary now has the floor, and I'll ask members on this side of the House to let the Parliamentary Secretary answer the question. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, that honourable member and his party has voted virtually against every single initiative our government has brought forward to help Canada's veterans, Mr. Speaker. As I mentioned earlier, if him and his party really cares about Canada's veterans, I would encourage them to start standing up and voting in favor of the measures we're bringing in for Canada's veterans.
The honourable member for Don Valley West.
Mr. Speaker, last night, this House finally had an opportunity to express its view on the historic Canada-EU trade agreement. With details and benefits of this agreement available for all to see, the Conservatives voted in favour of recommending the implementation of this agreement. Mr. Speaker, it comes as no surprise that the NDP stood in this place and voted against the historic free trade agreement. Can the Minister of International Trade please update the House on this important agreement?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Well, Mr. Speaker, last night the smoke cleared, and the NDP made it clear that they oppose the Canada-EU Free Trade Agreement. While the NDP opposes this important agreement, Canadians from coast to coast to coast have echoed their support for this agreement. And sadly, the Liberal record on trade is one of utter neglect. During 13 long years in government, they completed only 3 free trade agreements. In a short 8 years, our government has concluded trade agreements with 38 different countries. It is this Conservative government that can be trusted to create jobs and opportunities by increasing Canadian exports all around the world.
Bravo. I don't have to say the Gatineau.
The Honourable Member for Gatineau. The number of prisoners in Quebec increased by 13% over the last few years. This creates costs for the provinces. The government and the minister can't just wash their hands of it. Will the government listen to the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, Jean-Marc Cornier, and sit down with the provinces to talk about sharing the costs? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We want to deal with serious crime. We want to make sure that repeat offenders and dangerous offenders cannot commit more crimes. We want to work hard on this. We are committing to make sure to cut crime, to protect families and communities in Canada. Mandatory minimum sentences show Canadians that offenders will not have a chance to repeat their crimes. The Honourable Member for Gatineau.
Secretary, just put your money where your mouth is.
If the government is serious about fighting crime, it has to make sure to cooperate with its main partners, who are the provinces. It has not been shown that Bill C-10 is having a significant impact on crime, but we know it is having a significant impact on provincial budgets. Will the minister sit down with his counterparts from the provinces as being called for by the Quebec government and others? We need to have this discussion. Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. We have committed to Canadians that we will protect families. This government has values that it wants to protect. This is important. We want to protect Canadians. We will continue to cooperate with the provinces. We know that we have provided record funding to the provinces. The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Pierre Boucher. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the CBC's annual general meeting, the popular show host from Découverte, the Radio-Canada program, made an impassioned plea for the future of the public broadcaster. He said that things have gone too far and the corporation doesn't have the resources it needs. He criticized the successive cuts to the budgets. Will the minister understand that we need more people with passion for culture on the board? Well, as Mr. Lacroix has said, we need to have policies that apply to everybody. We know that the CBC and Radio-Canada don't have as many people watching their television program. They have to change their programming so that they will attract a larger audience. That is their problem. We can't do their work for them, and they need to do something to attract a larger audience. The honourable member. Well, Mr. Lacroix said also that he wasn't going to ask for a single penny more from the government because it wouldn't matter even if the broadcaster is having difficulty carrying out his mandate. So he's just going to let himself be walked all over. In addition to having to deal with these cuts from the Conservatives, there are new technologies that have to be paid for. Are the Conservatives then just trying to starve the corporation? What are they going to say? Are they going to tell all these, our whole audience to go elsewhere?
Canadien.
Honourable Minister.
Constituents, the young constituents in particular, that I learned how to speak French listening to Radio-Canada. I'm going to encourage them to continue to do so. And I'm going to tell them that we continue to provide CBC Radio-Canada with over $1 billion every year so that they can deliver quality programming that Canadians actually want to listen to and watch. And in the meantime, I'm going to encourage that member to continue to encourage those young people to learn both English and French and to respect the national broadcaster and the work that they do.
Mr. Speaker, immigration officials have confirmed that within the government's existing plans, there is space for more than 10,000 additional government-assisted refugees over the next 3 years. So at a minimum, and I know Jean Chrétien would want to do more, but at a minimum, will the minister use his existing spaces to admit 10,000 new Syrian refugees over the next 3 years, while also creating new spaces for refugees from other countries?
Good question. The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, as the member already knows, Canada has already received nearly 22,000 refugees from both Syria and Iraq. But here's what the Liberals would have us do. They would have left our asylum system clogged with claimants from rich and safe countries. They would offer to bogus claimants better health care than Canadians actually get. And instead of helping millions of people displaced inside Iraq and Syria, made refugees by a terrible conflict where brutal terrorists are murdering minorities every day, they would have us sit on the sidelines, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lac Saint-Louis.
Officials have confirmed that Canada could take 10,000 government-sponsored refugees a year over the next 3 years. Instead of fighting over the numbers regarding the few Syrian refugees that the government claims to have accepted, why won't the minister act generously in the Canadian tradition of international cooperation and accept 10,000 new Syrian refugees over the next 3 years and also create space for refugees from other countries? Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, it is sad, but the Liberals don't even want to mention the real facts. There are 22,000 Syrian refugees that have come to Canada. They don't talk about this. There are millions of people who are victims of this conflict, and this has nothing to do with policy on the part of our allies. They just want to sit on the sidelines in this unprecedented crisis.
St. John's South Mount Pearl.
Mr. Speaker, in order to get a trade deal with Europe, Conservatives bargained away minimum processing requirements that protect fish processing jobs in Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, at the time, Conservatives promised Newfoundland and Labrador compensation, $280 million to help our fishing industry adjust. The province accepted, but now, 2 years later, we learn Conservatives aren't following through. So what's the deal? Mr. Speaker, can the minister clear the air and confirm that he'll keep the commitment to Newfoundland and Labrador?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, the member is simply wrong. The support our government is proposing for Newfoundland and Labrador is actually focused on mitigating the impacts of eliminating minimum processing requirements. We continue that dialogue with the province on these issues. What our trade agreement will do is open up tariff-free access into the largest fish and seafood market in the world, worth $25 billion a year. We've secured the very best fish and seafood package for Canada, one that will dramatically improve the access our Atlantic fishers and seafood harvesters have to the EU. We encourage them to position themselves now to take advantage of these opportunities.
Honourable Member for Berthier-Masconnaughey. Mr. Speaker, over the years, hundreds of Canadian-made cheeses of exceptionally high quality have made their way to our tables. But now the Conservatives have opened the door to thousands of tons of subsidized European cheeses to come into Canada. Over a year ago, the Conservatives promised a compensation plan for our cheesemakers, but we've seen nothing. Where is the plan to compensate Quebec and Canadian cheesemakers?
Well, the only thing in that statement that was correct, Mr. Speaker, is that there are hundreds of quality Canadian cheeses produced in this great country, and lots of those, a number of those, end up on tables in the European Union, Mr. Speaker, and they're welcoming of our Canadian cheese in this deal that we have signed. We continue to work with the dairy farmers of Canada, with the processors, on the best way forward. We'll continue that dialogue, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Ancaster, Dundas, Flamborough, Westdale.
Mr. Speaker, last week in Hamilton at McMaster University, a pro-Palestinian group held an event called Hug a Terrorist Day. Wow. This was shocking and deplorable given that less than a month ago, Canada lost Warrant Officer Patrice Vincent and Corporal Nathan Cirillo, two brave Canadian Armed Forces members, in a terrorist attack right here on our own soil. Could the Minister of Public Safety please update this House on his views on this extremely offensive event that makes light of victims of terrorism and what our government is doing to protect Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we strongly condemn this callous attention-seeking stunt. In recent weeks, we have seen terrorists killed our Canadian Armed Forces in cold blood, and the criminals of the Islamic State calling for volcanoes of jihad against Canadians. It is now clear more than ever, Mr. Speaker, that we need to be vigilant against the threat of terrorists and not complacent. This is why our government will strongly move forward to bring the tools we need to keep Canadians safe.
The Honourable Member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The child mortality rate in low-income countries is sadly 13 times higher than in developed countries. How has the Conservative government chosen to honour this country's commitment to protect vulnerable children? They've deliberately underspent Canada's aid budget for low-income countries by nearly $126 million. On Universal Children's Day, will the government explain why they are taking aid money for poor children and using it to fund things like income splitting for wealthy families?
Honourable Minister.
I was very happy to have a great event this morning with the Canadian Network for the International Child Protection. This morning we announced great initiative with UNICEF, with Plan International, for the protection of the children, especially in Kenya, and with partnership with UNICEF. But, Mr. Speaker, let's be clear. The Canadian government met all of its international commitment last year and since we are in office, which was not the case with the previous Liberal government. Mr. Speaker, Canadians can be proud because we pay what we pledge and we are globally renowned on the international stage. It's a source of pride, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Laurentides-Labelle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently met with veterans, in particular a veteran who was injured while on duty. He had to retire 2 years early, and his pension was cut by 45%. He had services like snow clearing and lawn cutting before, and now no longer does. Can the minister tell him why the $1.1 billion budgeted for veterans has been redirected as a tax cut for the well-off? The Honourable Minister.
I understand I have answered this question a number of times already during this question period, but I'm happy to do this one more time, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government has a strong record when it comes to providing benefits and services for Canada's veterans. And let me just list a few, Mr. Speaker. We have reduced the layers of red tape for veterans and the services and benefits that they receive. A veteran who is injured and in rehabilitation receives a minimum of $3,500 in financial benefits each month. Veterans who are most seriously injured can receive $8,000 or more per month in financial benefits from Government of Canada and their military pension. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg South Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the upcoming Saturday marks the official anniversary of Holodomor, a tragic period in Ukraine's history that claimed many millions of lives. Our government solemnly stands with the people of Ukraine as they commemorate this anniversary. Canada and Ukraine have always maintained a productive and fruitful relationship. Could the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Defence please update this House on Canada's relationship with Ukraine?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow marks the one-year anniversary of the Euromaidan protests. Our government continues to stand with Ukraine in the face of its current challenges, unlike the NDP. The NDP member from Halifax is shamefully promoting on her website that NATO schemes to use Ukraine as a battering ram and platform on which to foster major aggression against Russia. Mr. Speaker, that statement is despicable. Whether it takes 5 months or 50 years to liberate it, our government will never, ever recognize the illegal Russian occupation of any Ukrainian territory. Our Prime Minister made it clear to Mr. Putin at the G20 when he said, "You need to get out of Ukraine. The people of Ukraine and Ukrainian Canadians know they can stand with us."
Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille. By allowing Canada Post to cut home mail delivery, the Conservative government is acting as an accomplice. While the provinces and municipalities are trying to adapt their services to the needs of an aging population, Canada Post and the Conservatives are complicating seniors' lives. Next year, the citizens of the people of Boisbriand, and especially those with reduced mobility, will face the consequences of this service cut. Why is the Conservative government cutting our public services? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I remind the member the Conservative government is doing no such thing, Mr. Speaker. Canada Post, which is independent and arm's length, is facing a crisis in mail delivery. 1.2 billion fewer letters in 2013 than in 2006 were delivered, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are changing the way they communicate, and Canada Post is trying to respond as other postal agencies around the world, Mr. Speaker. They have a 5-point action plan, and in executing that plan in the move to community mailbox, Mr. Speaker, they are reaching out to those in communities to look at their needs and assessments, Mr. Speaker, and providing alternate arrangements for that.
The Honourable Member for HoC. Given the regional instability created by the conflict in Syria, 40 countries, including Canada, that participated in the Berlin Conference on October 28th, included in their final declaration that it was important to increase humanitarian aid to Syria. Lebanon, which has nearly 4 million inhabitants, has nearly over 1 million displaced Syrians. Will Canada, in the spirit of that declaration, increase its humanitarian aid quickly inside Syria and in keeping with the resolutions? Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for her question. Obviously, there is an important tragedy underway in Syria and Lebanon and elsewhere. There are great humanitarian needs. We are working with our partners. We've helped move 16,000 people. We've provided millions of dollars in aid. We're working very closely with the Canadian Red Cross, and I would remind everyone that we made a significant commitment in Jordan in January, including to help a lost generation of children.
Thursday, the Honourable Member for Burnaby, New Westminster, will no doubt wish to ask the Thursday question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased, especially given the Thursday question 2 weeks ago. There were a number of pieces of good legislation that have come before this House and that have been supported by the House. For example, the private members' bill on National Remembrance Day, the member for Alfred Pelin, who brought forward the private members' bill as well on National Midwives' Day, and obviously the member for Scarborough Rouge River, who has just put forward a private members' bill to eliminate child poverty. They're all very good bills, Mr. Speaker, and which should receive the support of this House. So it is important that people can see the common sense shown by the official opposition, the NDP.
Can continue. We're continuing to bring forward on the floor of the House of Commons a whole variety of important